update. And just in case you missed the top stories, Senate approval of the 10 trillion shilling budget ceiling and the ramifications that will have for the next government in the next years to come, and Senate adjourning indefinitely. We've just seen that in Nyoma Sampao's report. Uhuru rejecting 3 bills, including the ICT bill there, with the issues that have been raised, including the ramifications and implications for the stakeholders and the players in the online space. Now, President Kenyatta has also signed into law 10 bills, and will be breaking more of that. And in the TIFA polls that were released yesterday, we saw Raila being in the lead, quite considerably so, in comparison to the other top runner in the election, that is Ruto. So going at about 50% to about 25%. Many people raising questions about this and if it is accurate. And Wajakoya factor, 7%. Wow, he's going higher and higher. So anyway, let's now get to the papers before we look at what we are considering for our update. And we will start with the, before we get to this, Rosalyn Obala joins me. Karibu, she's our political editor here at NTV. And Rosalyn, you want to start with this focus on the Standard. And this, I can hold this up for the camera. What awaits the next president, being the top focus here for the Standard newspaper? Sorry, let me hold it to this camera, I'm told. Yes, so 10 trillion shilling debt ceiling that has been approved by both houses of parliament. This is a big deal, especially where we are right now with the elections and what the next leader in the country will have to consider.
Thank you so much, Mark. Actually, if you look at it, the next budget kicks off in the next month, that is July 1st. But if you look at the budget that was passed, that was presented by the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Uhuru, it was a 3.3 trillion budget.
Yes.
Now, the projected revenue to be raised by government is 2.4 trillion. Now, our first charge, which is the public debt, stands at 1.4 trillion. Now you look at that and you look at a budget that we are not able to sustain, where we even have a deficit of over 400. And now for us to raise this budget, that the hole in the budget, we have to raise like 846 billion. Now for that to happen, the government had to raise the debt ceiling. Remember, it was at 9 trillion. It started at 6.5 trillion. We moved it to 9 trillion. And now we've moved it further to 10 trillion. This was after the CS had gazetted the legal notice 89 of the PMF national government regulations. And this will now give the government the leeway to be able to just not borrow. What is of concern is that we are also going to borrow now for recurrent, which will not be the case because we're only supposed to borrow for development. And if you listen to some of the economic experts, they will tell you that we are consuming more than we are able to actually raise.
Basically living beyond our means.
That is it.
As a nation.
Yes.
And that should be a top concern for the next government, even as they go around giving promises to remain practical in terms of what they can deliver.
And maybe the debt ceiling will even go further up.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because it seems to be the trend here, and a very big appetite for debt, and also concerns about the IMF and them, who are not too happy with the way we have managed our own expenditure and trying to get revenue from within government and within the service providing sector, because there are conditions to the loans that they give. And we haven't quite lived up to that.
Yeah, I remember when the Jubilee government came on board, the first thing they looked east. So most of our loans were from China.
Right.
Then at some point we found that we were paying very high interest rates to China. So you remember in the middle of this parliament, they decided to rest the expensive loans and have concessions from the World Bank and IMF. But it didn't just come like that. It came with conditions. Some of them was even to consolidate the parastatals, which we haven't done. We were to lay off people. But the other problem that we have is that if you look at within the public service, they have said that between 2020 and 2025, we're going to have a huge number of people retiring. So that means that we also have to put aside pension to pay these people. So here we are talking about paying pensions. We are having the mega projects that we are running, and you're also having to sustain the huge recurrent expenditure that we have. Because if you look at the rate of people who are in the public sector, and especially the state officers, they compose 2%, but what they consume is more than the general people in the public sector. So these are some of the issues that we are grappling with. Again, if you look at this election, we are going to have members of the county assemblies and staff who might not come back, and who we have to pay gratuities and all that. We also have to pay members of parliament who might not come back again. We need to also put that money aside.
In fact, that's been the complaint, that the attrition rate, especially when the National Assembly was going on recess, the attrition rate, and they were concerned that not many will come back, and that's going by the patterns. So you're looking at what you're calling the gratuity.
Actually, for members of parliament, it's not gratuity, but you pay them a send-off package.
Right.
Yes.
So, hey, it doesn't look good for the country. So a lot of scratching of the heads for those who are looking to head the nation. So speaking of the nation, let's go to the Daily Nation and what their focus is. And this is a story that has gotten quite the attention in terms of the intrigues there, cash crypto deals and 4 murders. And the picture there of the 4 gentlemen, 4 friends actually, who are said to have dabbled in a bit of cryptocurrency, and perhaps as investigations continue, that is Moses, Elijah, Fred, and Frank. Their bodies were found, 3 of them were found in Kijabe Forest and 1 in Magadi, and it seemed to have been a well-orchestrated incident where, and this follows investigations as well, that some police officers are saying that one of them, especially Fred Obare, had been arrested with a case of scamming someone 1 million shillings on a cryptocurrency deal. And this is going to be the focus as the families look for answers. And it is said that there was a woman who was behind making sure that they were all in one place. And the big question being, who would have wanted them dead and why? Rosalind, we're turning to the numbers here, and with the IBC having released the number of registered voters who were eligible to vote in August, we're looking at 22.1 million. Now, this has increased from last time, which was a little over 19 million.
Yeah.
But there is a concern here about the youth vote. Before we even look at what is needed for a first round win for the presidential candidates, there is a concern here about the youth vote and not being so impressive, or at least not hitting the target that the IBC had.
Yeah, actually, it's a major concern, because you see, we've been talking about the youth vote being that they are, they are the majority. But if you look at the latest figures that were released by IBC after they audited the register, then it's a shocker, because we find that the majority are 35 and above. So actually this tends to clear the fallacy that we've been having, that the youth constituency is a big constituency that all the candidates are supposed to scramble for.
Right.
And also the target we are looking here was that majority of the youth, if they had registered, are people who are born in 2002, actually came in with the Rainbow administration.
Right.
So, and that is why, even if you look at the style of the candidates, they have actually changed to tap in that youth constituency, and that's why they've gone online. You look at some of the campaign trail, they have the young people to come and do their skits, to sing, and all that, to just be able to speak the language of the youth.
Right.
But now when you look at these figures, then it's a bit of a worry. Right. That indeed we've been having so many of these youths turning up to events, that has even forced the candidates. Remember, sometimes even Azimio presidential candidate had to change his dress code, his look, and even how he engages, even the messaging. The same with the deputy president from the Kenya Kwanza side.
You've mentioned something there. You talk a lot and you interact a lot with the politicians from your political desk, and you read into their strategy.
Yes.
And yes, we've seen the approach trying to be a bit more youthful. Do you see them changing their tact and the approach as they move forward 47 days to the election?
I don't think that will quite work. You see, at the moment, the constituency that the candidates should focus on is that of the undecided.
All right.
So because if you look at it, we also have a big number of the undecided or non people who don't know which side they are in. And that could also include the youth. So still, you cannot say this is a constituency that you leave behind. Even those who have registered, they still need to be convinced that this is the best candidate for them. And that is why you see every time that the candidates have the various forums they've been having and engagements, you also see them having their own conversations with the youth, because the youths who also even guide the old people. Remember, your parent at home, you'll have to come and convince them that from my end, I think this is the best candidate. The youth might not have that vote, but they still have some influence.
Yeah, but also looking critically at the numbers, because it says that it's 39.8% are, categorized as youth, which is under 35, 18 to 35, and 60% above 35. So perhaps between this year and the last election, those who were considered the youth have just crossed over. Yes. To 36, from 35. Yes. So, I mean, that's why there has been the notion that we really need to rope in the youth vote. But translating this to actual votes, because, as you said, there are those who are undecided, even if they have a voter's card and they're eligible to vote, really convincing them that going to the ballot will make a difference. That's a task that the politicians have to get over.
And if you've looked at the polls, some of the issues that are coming up, you find that the entire constituency, there's confusion among the electorate, because here they're given candidates who actually are sending mixed signals. You look at the Azimio candidate, and in the past he has been a fighter for the human rights, and the issues that when they used to come up, like people being the cost of living, we'll hear him at the top speaking about it and calling out the establishment of the day. Now here is a case where the same government is the one that is supporting his candidature. So you find that these are also contributed to confusion of the candidates, the voters. And then you find a deputy president who is in government, but actually the leader of opposition. So again, these are also mixed signals that are causing now many people not being able to have another choice. But again, you look at what has happened with Wajakoya from nowhere, and he's just shot to 7%.
Right.
Now that tells you that there is also another protest within the voters, or people who just want to be anti-establishment and just go over the other side.
And you would say that he has more of an appeal to the youth, given what he has been projecting there as his priority.
But you might be surprised that even the people who are
there
not
are those
youth
who are, beyond the youth bracket who are actually,
somebody was telling me
entertained.
that the people who subscribe to the JAR rule and the Rasta thing that he subscribes to are almost over 4 million.
That's
might
true.
Be surprised.
But converting that again, because you've been watching the elections and the trends.
Yes.
There was a time Peter Kenneth was seen to be very popular. Yes. And then when it came to the moment of reckoning, counting the votes, he had more followers on online on social media than he did. Do you think this is another case repeating itself? We also saw the popularity of Dida during the previous elections, and he was different, but does that necessarily translate to a vote?
I think this one for Jakoya will be a very interesting scenario to watch, because just note that he's trending online, but even the people you meet, there are even others who say, we wish we knew he was in the ballot for us to register to vote for him. So he has a liking of a constituency that maybe was not decided on where to go. And
so we can't wish him away.
Yes, yes.
He's not just a joker.
No, he's not just a joker.
All right.
Yes.
Because there's this concern here, and I know we've taken a moment to get there, but it was necessary because looking at the numbers, Nation Team has done an analysis and projections with what would give or grant a presidential candidate, whoever it will be, amongst the four, a first round win. And in this particular target here, with the average of 2013 and 2017 voter turnout at 82%, they're looking at, for this particular year, presidential candidate needing at least 9 million votes to get over, to get to first round win. Are there any, is there any likelihood of a spoiler vote, a spoiler candidate who will sway it one way or the other? And because now the calculation is 50 plus 1, given the numbers.
Any of these candidates can pull it, the two top contenders.
Yes.
Any can pull a first round win. Azimio can do it,
yes.
Kenya Kwanza can do it. But we have a Jakoya spoiler who might just spoil the coffee for them, yes, at the last minute.
Right.
So I think he's a guy that we cannot wish away.
Yes.
Remember, he just came in the other day. We didn't take him serious until he was cleared by the IBC. But immediately after being cleared, just some weeks after that, you see he's already at 7%. Give him another 2 weeks. Maybe we'll even be higher than that.
Right.
And remember, we still have that constituency that is undecided. So it can go whichever way. And also these candidates must convince this undecided constituency to be able to get the 50 plus 1.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's another piece here on the 7th page, no more ugali sosa as a cost of unga sauce. Now, I know you're a fan of your ugali, Rosalino Bala, with your fish.
Sure.
And this is actually, we're laughing at this, but it's quite the concern because it's now evident the issue of the cost of living having gone up. It reflects in a small ways, even how much you pay for public transport. And people are going in with these concerns as we're going to vote. Do you think the politician, as they campaign, are they putting this at the top of their agenda? The present day concerns, not the promises for tomorrow, but the present day concerns.
Okay, if you look at the campaigns, they're talking more about the stopgap measures after they are elected. Most of them are talking about reducing the cost of fertilizer, farm inputs, bringing down the cost of living, ensuring that they stabilize the fuel subsidy. But remember, just the other day, the CS had issued a statement. And if you read between the lines, it's like maybe as we go forward, the government might do away with the fuel subsidy. And because of that, maybe Kenyans will even pay 200 shillings per
Yes,
per
the indication
liter.
even from
It
CS
might be
Juma
also,
was that it's going up.
yes, and then also the same CS again had put in a gazette notice. And remember, he had allowed the agriculture CS to be able to allow for non-GMO imports of maize. And we're talking about 540,000 metric tons of maize. And we are talking about not importing within the East Africa region, but outside. So you might find around Mexico maize and all that. And that comes at a cost. Because if it was locally, then you can actually regulate the cost. And also that farmers have known that we are having issues of shortage.
Yes.
They're also holding on to the product. So Kenyans are actually dealing with a lot in terms of the cost of living.
And here's something else that will also inform the talk and the messaging. The headline there for Taifa Leo, wajuza kwa jina la Mungu. And this is not new. In Kenya being rated as 80% Christian. I mean, that number could be argued here and there. But there, first of all, before we get into this, there is the issue of Wajakoya and telling his followers to ignore the Catholic Church. Do you think this will work against him? Because there's a good mass there of Catholic people within the electorate.
But also remember, the Constitution allows you to subscribe to whichever fellowship you want.
That's true. But so politically, do you think this would play against him?
Politically, it might, because the Catholic Church will come gun blazing. And also one of the presidential candidates, Wahiga, has also hit out to him for just taking on the Catholic Church. But remember, there is that, again, percentage of Kenyans who don't subscribe to Christianity,
right,
who are just there. They are not Catholics. They don't subscribe to anything. But again, as a country, we believe in Christianity. So we believe in our leaders being able to respect our religions. So
yes,
again, all that, if you look at it again, it might work against him, but it also might work to appeal to that constituency that does not believe in Christianity.
Do you think it's the notion that, you know, religion is the opium for the masses, that the politicians, and we've seen it play out over the last few weeks, actually over the years, and the small statements there of perhaps Ruto saying that Raila doesn't even give sadaka, you know, so how can you expect him to deliver for the nation? These are not small statements. They actually touch, you know, they're at the heart of many Kenyans.
Actually, it does. But again, the church has also had its own say in the
Yes,
politics of this country. And they've always come out and spoken to what they feel the leadership of this country should have. And they've been very big on the issue of governance. So again, we can't wish the church away. As the candidates, we must also listen to what, because they're the ones who lead their flock. And those who believe in Christianity, who believe in the church or Muslim people, they again listen to their clerics, to what they're being told and what they believe in as Christians and Muslims. So again, that might just stand to have an effect on Wajakoya.
Right. Yeah. Okay, let's see about that. The East African here, can EAC pacify Eastern Congo? There has been a bit of trouble there in the last few weeks, and it doesn't seem like it will be stopping anytime soon. The hope for political solution to the DRC conflict is fading as fighting continues in Kinshasa. Rolls neighbors Rwanda and Uganda over claims of supporting the M23 rebels. Will the EAC standby force succeed where others have failed? And there is the place of Kenya playing into the regional concerns, security concerns, something the next leader will have to definitely think about and not just ignore, because it has ramifications within the EAC and us, Kenya, being the hub for the region. So a top focus for the next leader, right?
Actually, not just the top focus. Remember, Kenya is a member of the United Nations Security Council. And because of that, they're like the leader in the region. And the other day, you remember President Uhuru hosted the leaders from the region. And the main agenda was to talk about the security in Eastern Congo. And DRC just joined the EAC the other day. Right. So they really need to work hard and ensure that they restore peace in that region. And I think after the meeting, Kenya has been given the go-ahead to actually lead the peacekeeping mission in that region. Right. So as a matter of fact, our candidates must really focus not only on the region, on the country's priority, but in terms of the regional, the overseas diplomacy, and also in the region. They must stand tall and give us their priority in their next government. What do they need to do? Because it's not about only the security. It's also about the business aspect of it. Remember, right, bringing together the East African community, even to have a federal presidency and to have one unity bank. So there's so much that the current candidates must just tell us they will do for the region. And as you can see, you've just mentioned there the part that Kenya plays for regional concerns. And here, this on page 6 of the East African, Hope as Addis, Tigray opt for dialogue in Nairobi. Yes. Quite a central place for regional concerns. Even over the years, we've seen the place that we played for Southern Sudan. South Sudan, and so yes, it is going to be something that the next leader would have to look into for moving forward. Now, something here, pull out Seeds of Gold, cashing in on Farm Fun. Meet the Farmer offering office workers on team building sessions and holiday makers a new experience on the farm. Get to know what that is about. So that's a quick look. Actually, we've spent 5 minutes more than we were ought to on the paper, but get your daily there to get more news and a breakdown of the latest happenings. But Rosalind, something that we're going to be focusing on, at least a few of them, and that is in our docket today. And we'll be looking at definitely the campaigns that will be going on. And if we could look at that now,
Raila leads the Azimio campaigns in Samburu. That will be today. And Kenya Kwanza Disability Forum in Nairobi will be continuing. And DP Ruto will be leading the campaign thereafter in Kajiado. And Uhuru to issue title deeds at KICC. Karua to meet Muslim leaders in Nairobi. Senate adjourns indefinitely, that we've seen, and we'll have a breakdown further of the debt ceiling being raised to 10 trillion. And we've just seen there something about, you know, you've mentioned we're not just Christian. So Karua and her team definitely strategic in approaching. She's meeting the Muslim leaders today.
Actually, remember the other day also they were at the 100-year celebration for the Akorino, yeah.
Right.
So that just tells you that they just not go to one particular faith, but they have to meet everybody and just listen to them. What do they expect in the administration? And you've also seen Ruto meeting some of the church leaders and also Muslims,
yes,
to get their views and see what do they expect if he wins, or the Azimio candidate wins, or the other two presidential candidates.
Right, and so that's some of the things that Rosalind Obala will be charging our colleagues to. In fact, you've just mentioned there what Ruto was up to yesterday at Ngong Racecourse, and he continues with that meeting with the team, or at least representatives from the disability representatives in Kenya. Well, yesterday he gave a promise there. I'll deport Chinese traders, Ruto pledges, and he was meeting with small business leaders at Ngong Racecourse. And that is definitely something that resonates with people. The concerns of having some Chinese nationals in the business of kuuza mahindi choma.
Mahindi choma.
Yes.
I think that is something that has been of an issue. And you remember there's a time the Interior Cabinet Secretary actually visited some of the areas and even asked the work permits they had. Because again, when we have external skills, there should be skills that we don't have in the country. We can't have people coming in to do taxi driving, to do businesses in Kikomba. And this is something that the traders have raised for a very long time.
Right.
So I think the DP addressing this issue, it's at the core of Mama Mboga and these are the Juakali people and all that. Yeah.
Right. And Rosalind, you've also been kind enough to secure an interview with the Jubilee Vice Chairperson, David Murathe. I'm told he's on his way here. And, you know, he has been at the forefront of really fighting the Deputy President. What do you feel should be the focus as we get into the conversation about the involvement of government machinery in the campaigns? He's said before that the president will be on the campaign trail, and he's also said that he won't. Do you think that will change, especially now that we have 47 days to the general election, the involvement directly in campaigns of President Uhuru?
I think that will not change. I think the last time David Murathe was very clear that the president will not hit the campaign trail. But the last time he was in Sagana 3, he had promised to hit the campaign trail.
Yes.
So
the president himself.
Himself said
Yes.
that. And the fact that David Murathe said as the vice chair of his party, then it means indeed he will not campaign. And you can see that already Azimio One Kenya deputy president candidate is already hitting the ground, and he has taken Raila to central Kenya and the other regions. So him being the Azimio Council chairman, he doesn't need maybe to be on the ground, but coordinate from wherever he is.
Yes, yeah. And even the subtle pronouncement of preference of the presidential candidate can be deemed as a campaign in and of itself, much as Murathe has said that, I mean, he has 47 days to go home and rest. He has no business campaigning for Raila Odinga. But someone would say he's already endorsed him, he's thrown his weight behind him, and even charged his CSs to support him. So perhaps that's a campaign in a way.
Yeah, he has actually campaigned, and he has not shied out to say it. Every time he has given Kenyans a reason why he had decided to support Raila, and he said he stood with him at the time that the country really needed the handshake, and he stood by him. So now it's this time that he is the best candidate to take over from him.
Right.
So even having his candidates, and they have argued that in law there is nothing that blocks the cabinet secretaries and the principal secretaries from being in the campaign trail. So they don't see anything wrong, as much as the deputy president and his team believe that the cabinet secretaries are not supposed to be part of the campaigns.
And do you think, because there has been the suggestion that a case is building or is being built against the government right now and its involvement in the campaigns, and much as people are talking about or projecting a first round win, there has been whispers here and there of a second round election, and also a challenge in court based on the concerns that have been raised. One amongst them, the involvement of public servants. Is this a possibility that even in the newsroom as we prepare, we're not just covering a first round win, there is going to be a protracted process? There's
always the post ballots.
Yes.
So you need to prepare. Anything can happen. Remember, we have a 14-day window that those who don't win in the elections have to move to the Supreme Court and either challenge the outcome of the elections. But remember, any elections will always have issues.
Yes.
Now, one of them is that issue of the government machinery and the civil servants engaging in public, in the campaigns. But again, is how will you craft your case and how will you argue it?
Yes, what evidence will you have?
Yes.
Right. But it's funny, they've been saying, you know, it happened 2017, so why the concern right now?
It always depends on which side the interest is.
The issue of what goes around comes around. I'm told he is almost here, so let's take a break and be back with Mr. David Murathe, the vice chairman of the Jubilee Party, that is part of the Azimio and One Kenya coalition party, and definitely behind Raila Odinga and Martha Karua as the presidential candidate and running mate. Definitely against the Kenya Kwanza team. He'll have plenty to say about that. And we'll open the lines for you after the break. You can contribute by asking your question directly to David Murathe. We'll have the numbers at the lower part of the screen, and also join us online at hashtag AMLiveNTV, as we also pick that from your contributions on Twitter and such. So stay with us.
Khandi, sijui watu wa Nairobi wanafikirianga na kiungo gani. Yaani nimekuja Nairobi kufanya kazi ya security. Siku yangu ya kwanza nikaota mtosi wangu ametajirika. Nikamwambia mtoto yangu, akanifuta kazi. Common sense. Common sense.
To get Watchman, dial *812*804#. Skiza na Nation.
This is the only show ambayo inakupatia nafasi ya kuwekeza na kujishindia. Imagine you winning all this simply because you are a member of Harambee Sacco. We still have a lot of prizes to give out. Tuko na
smart TV, tuko na generator, tuko na apiko,
na bado tuko na shamba ya
kantafu.
One of the key highlights of our strategic plan 2021-2025 is institutional strengthening, so that that institution can drive itself. We want our customers as they come here to be happy that I'm going to an institution which takes care of me.
This ends today. Nini unaficha?
Baby ni viungo.
Toka kwa nyumba yangu. Asiwahi kurudi kwa compound tena.
Umefukuzwa, si ndio? Usinianzeshe kutoka. Unajua unataka nikubomoa hapa, si ndio? Toka hapa. Umzae baadhi lazima achukue simu yangu.
Hii gari nimeambiwa na mwenyewe nikuje nichukue.
Mwenyewe ni mimi. This is my car.
Pia huyo mwanamke amenisumbua sana.
Ni nani alimwambia?
Si ulituma mtu akuje achukue gari nikiwa naenda kufanya shughuli zangu?
If there is no sugar, there is no gari, there is no money.
Get peace of mind and protect the ones you love with the power of Dettol Bar Soap. It cleans and protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. So no matter what type of mum you are, trust Dettol.
Kenya is a country of resilient, innovative, and hardworking people.
The sovereignty.
Our journey highlights major national divisions, the unity that followed, the gradual economic growth, and our daily struggles.
I call upon Nobel Peace Prize laureate for 2004, Wangari Maathai.
Our greatest achievements are our sports personalities.
He's still in podium position, contention here, and he seems to be coming in for the second position. Oh my God!
And our national pride is the unity of our diverse cultures. Our land is blessed with exotic tourist destinations that we boast of globally. These are the deeply rooted principles of our national pride. Mimi Mkenya.
Between the age of 0 and 5 to a child, it's very important between a child and a parent. Where that was not there for me. I got myself into a toxic relationship, a violent marriage that led me to lose my first baby. And I was beaten every day to an extent. If Grace, a day will pass without being beaten, I would ask myself, mbona leo sijachapwa?
Majamaa, tumeishi pamoja vizuri kama majirani. Watoto wetu wamecheza shuleni na hata nyumbani. Haijalishi wewe ni kabila gani. Tumekuwa Wakenya wangwana sana. Lakini inapofika wakati wa uchaguzi, chuki, vurugu, vita na siasa mbaya zinaingia hadi tunasahau hizo miaka zote tumeishi kwa amani. Mbona tofauti zetu za kisiasa zinafanya tusielewane? Uchaguzi utakuja na utapita, lakini Kenya itabaki kuwa nchi yetu. Kwa hivyo tusikubali fitina na kutumiwa vibaya.
To get Meme Kenya by Anna Ogwas, dial *811 *929#. Skiza na Nation.
latest and credible news on the general elections. Subscribe to the Daily Nation Election News. Send the word election to 20688 and stay informed on coalitions, defections, resignations, election candidates, and many more. Daily Nation. The truth.
Rhythm and flow.
This is why I'm hot. I'm hot cause I'm fly.
I eat filet mignon and I'm nice and young. Best believe I'm number one.
Got money, and you know it.
Me hide them jam, me no care. You take it anytime, anywhere.
For the best of the 2000s, tune in every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and Sunday from 8 p.m. to 12 midnight.
Some love them, some love them. Come on, I'ma jump on them and I'ma rob them. Some love them, some love them. Come on, I'ma jump on them.
Rhythm and flow.
Taking you back in the day.
Nation FM.
Imarika Deposit Taking Sacco is set to launch its next 5-year strategic plan, plus its ultra-modern headquarters in Kilifi Town.
Imarika Sacco was registered in 1974 by primary school teachers. We are now allowing other members outside the teaching fraternity.
The strategic plan for us gives an overview of where we've come from, where we are, and where we intend to go. So we intend to grow our asset base, grow our business, to grow the entire membership.
Nimenunua plot, nimejenga nyumba yangu kwa sababu ya kujiunga na Imarika Sacco.
Imarika has really helped me grow to the level I am today.
Imarika Sacco's next 5 years, this Thursday at 6:40 p.m. on NTV.
Every day, we empower our members to work, to inspire, to lead. Equity. Karibu member.
Welcome back to AM Live, and we have the newsmaker of the day, David Murathe, the Vice Chairman of the Jubilee Party. And just as he was checking in, he mentioned having listened in as he was preparing to make his way here to the studio about the questions about the Senate passing the approving the 10 trillion shilling debt ceiling, raising it from 9 trillion. And from your perspective, at least where you sit, you don't see the hullabaloo around that.
No. I think those who listen to His Excellency on the Madaraka Day, he made it very clear how places like Singapore and the so-called Asian Tigers developed. They developed by using other people's money. Nobody will give you money unless they think you have the capacity or the ability to pay. In Kenya, everybody is queuing to lend Kenya money. We have never reneged on any, whether it's the Eurobond, whether it's the World Bank, IMF facilities. Kenya has always been on top. Kenya is the only country in the region which has never had to go begging to be able to repay their debts. Of course, everybody has had to ask for rescheduling in terms of the COVID dynamics, where the economies were down, production was down, imports, the global sea lanes, everything was down. So the economic activity, the revenue base was down. So you're getting to a situation where people are renegotiating and asking for rescheduling of the debt. But Kenya, everybody wants to lend them money because of their ability to pay. Not to say that some of the borrowing has been very prudent, because we know there was cheaper money available, and these guys sometimes went for some very expensive money. Chinese money, for instance,
yes,
on the surface looks very cheap. But when you look at the details inside the cynosure and all the attendant costs that go with that facility, it's sometimes fairly expensive money. And that's why people prefer to do World Bank and IMF.
So you're saying even the IMF to date has no concern about the borrowing rate and the conditions that have been set. Are you saying that?
IMF has given our Treasury a clean bill of health.
Really? Even
Yes.
with the requirement to give the sunset dates for fuel subsidies? Which
Yes.
it hasn't given the exact dates. That's a Treasury.
Actually, the subsidies have been the cause of some of our problems, because this is the only government in the region that has been subsidizing the consumer. Now, what happens in terms of those subsidies is that the gap between the landed cost of petrol and the price of the consumer is actually paid by the government. So the government, instead of spending money on healthcare, instead of spending money on food security, instead of spending money on other social programs, is finding itself in a catch-22, where it is actually subsidizing the motorist. And remember, Kenyans are like, it's okay to have expensive petrol than not to have petrol, because people keep moving, because that is the engine of moving the economy.
Is that what Kenyans are saying? It's okay to have expensive?
I'm telling you, they'd rather have expensive power than no power, electricity, for example. And that is why you had the IPPs, the independent power producers. The manufacturers were saying, we'd rather have expensive power than have no power at all. Because if then you do not have power, everything grinds to a halt. It's the same case.
But at what cost? That's the question. But back to the IMF, and there are concerns. There's a report that the International Monetary Fund Executive Board is set to delay its approval to disperse 28.7 billion shillings loan disbursement to Kenya. And it is said that while the country had hoped to get the board's nod to wire the funds, which are part of a 3-year loan program, before June 30th, the IMF Executive Board calendar to the end of the month does not include discussions on the third tranche disbursement with Kenya. That spells like concerns from the IMF.
When you deal with IMF, you have to be very careful, because you remember when they brought structural adjustment programs to this country, they really hurt third world economies, and they want you to be beholden to them, so that they are like the headmaster telling you you can only do X, you cannot do it. So when you have a government that says, no, 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 no. In fact, one of the reasons why Kibaki succeeded was to trash that IMF protocol and go direct to friendly partners like China, who would then come. If you remember, we were having the EU, the IMF, the World Bank, and all their programs and projects had conditionalities. And the Chinese came along and they said, stop telling us about conditions and corruption and those things. We want to give you money to do the infrastructure to help you to take off.
Question is at what cost? But let's now get to your portfolio, rather your desk, which is as a vice chairman of Jubilee Party, which is the reason Rosaline Obala dragged you from Isiolo
I know.
and to go to Samburu to discuss the politics of the day, the party, coalition, as well as the nation.
Right.
With 47 days to the election.
Right.
Now, the IBC released the numbers of the registered voters, 22.1 million and 46,000 polling stations.
Right.
There were concerns about the illegal transfer of voters. As the leader of, or at least in the leadership of the Jubilee Party, are you at peace with the report that has been given by the IBC on the numbers, especially with the voter register?
I think the job was professionally done. I think they engaged KPMG.
Right.
And that audit cleaned the register, so to say. The dead voters, for example, were removed. People who double registered using IDs, using passports.
A little over
were
700,000.
detected. We are highly IT savvy right now. And yes, we do not have a problem with those numbers. I think the movement of people, for example, we moved from Muranga to register in Nairobi. I am in Garden Estate.
Yes.
I was a voter in Gatanga. I now vote in Roysambu. Why? Because the polling station is next to my house. I want to elect the MCA for my ward, where I live. I want to elect the MP for my constituency in Nairobi. I want to elect the Nairobi governor because I spend most of my time in Nairobi in the week and go to the village over the weekend. The rest of the family, maybe my grandmother, my aunties and all, who are in the village, we can have this conversation about who they should elect in the village. But when you have people trooping from the city to go and vote in Kangema or in Siaya, it's like, who are they leaving to determine the leadership of the capital city where they spend most of their time?
Yes.
So that movement is justified.
So you're happy with the numbers and the reports?
We are happy
so
with the
far?
numbers. Actually, what came out of those numbers is that like 13 million are over 35. 8 are the ones so-called youth below 35.
So they're talking about 40% almost of youth within the 22.1
So it's a 60-40.
Yes. Does that change your tact in terms of approach as a party and as a coalition?
The targeting is clear. You're now dealing with a generation which has lived through the, let's say, 24 years of Moi,
right,
the 10 years of Kibaki, and the 10 years of Uhuru. People who have a history of what happened before we got multipartyism. People who lived under the one-party dictatorship. And people who have this fear that maybe some of our competitors are going to bring back that era of single-party KANU dictatorship.
Right.
So the voter now is, the demographic is more informed than the young people who have been radicalized. You see, they've never known any other. They've never known other regime.
Look, it almost sounds like you're generalizing the youth bracket, you know, as not being able to think for themselves. Yes, there's a radicalization aspect, but they do have, you know, critical thinking capacity to make decisions for themselves. I mean,
and that is why when people present their manifestos and their programs, the question is, who can you believe in?
Yeah.
Tinga has always given this promise about what he would do if he ever had power. And the competitors have been in government. Musalia was in government in 1989. William Ruto has been in government for the last 30 years, since KANU YK 92. He has been powerfully in every government since 1992. So people are like, hey, now who can you believe in? Whose promises are believable? If Tinga is promising change to these young people, that is change you can believe in.
But
and
even
it's
Tinga,
in the manifesto.
in you know, to be fair in argument, Raila has been prime minister. Even his running mate has been in the cabinet. So
that was a very contentious arrangement, which was a coalition, a national accord coming out of a post-election crisis, a post-election violence. It was a forced government where actually even Tinga was complaining about how he was being treated as prime minister.
We find ourselves in the nation as well as in a situation, a coalition that has its roots in a handshake to save, or at least what has been sent out there in the messaging, to bring the country together from the precipice of destruction after the handshake. So it's you know,
Look,
parallels there.
The first handshake in this country was actually between Uhuru and Ruto. After the post-election violence, it was a peace dividend. And you reach out to the people, you are protagonists, the people who you engage with, the people you fight with. Now, for a better word, it was the Kikuyu versus the Kalenjin.
Yes.
So they reached out, shook hands, went into the team and won. And you know, in 2013, there was absolutely no violence. Okay, the election was still disputed. The Supreme Court found in favor of the winning side. In 2017, again, now that matter was settled, you had another protagonist to deal with. And I think it's the statesmanship of both the president and the former prime minister. Because the result was without doubt. Actually, that result was about processes and procedures, about transmission, about if they went to count the physical vote, the score was 54 to 44. But the Supreme Court found that there were issues to do with transmission, to do with the law in terms of conducting an election. That's why they nullified.
Okay.
These guys were celebrating the nullification. But then they did not agree to go to the repeat. Why? Because they said if we're going to go to the repeat under the same conditions, the result would be the same. Now, and Tinga has said it himself, the options were either he would have been charged for treason, because there is a constitutionally installed government sworn in by the Chief Justice, or they were going to go to the streets and split Kenya into two. There were people who were saying they were quite happy to dismantle this country. So that wisdom, that reaching out, that agreeing to shake hands and say, look, Kenya is more important than all of us, I think is what has taken us to where we are today. And like I said to you the other day, all the countries around us are in chaos. Ethiopia is in trouble. Sudan is in trouble. South Sudan is in trouble. DRC, you have seen with Rwanda. All around us, Kenya is the only oasis of stability and peace. And trying to bring the Kenyans together, that peace and the unity drive arising out of the handshake, I think is something that has helped this country.
Right.
And is going to help it in the long run. I don't know whether some of these young people know what it is when they see women and children trekking to go and become refugees. Kenya takes in refugees. Go to Dadaab, and we're going there in the course of the week. Go to parts of Kenya like Kakuma. How many Kenyans have you had trekking out to go to other countries?
We definitely
as
don't
refugees?
Want to get there. We definitely don't want to get there.
We don't want to get there, so
right.
we have to give it to them.
Great. Okay. And I'm hoping to get some, behind the scenes look of what led to the handshake. We know the happenings, but the workings behind the scenes and whether you were part of this because you are very close to the president and you have his ear in terms of political advice and what have you. But you did say, you are on record as saying that even the deputy president was actually a compromise choice as Deputy President Ruto in 2013. Do you still stand by that?
Yes. The first option was Eugene Wamalwa in 2013. Mm-hmm. We were basically looking at the numbers. They were going to bring in more numbers to our basket than the Rift Valley basket. Because Rift Valley is a diaspora which is very interesting, where you have the Maasai, you have the Kalenjin, you have Kikuyus, you have everybody in the Rift Valley. You have Baluya, you have Kisi, everybody is there. So in terms of sheer numbers, we were quite happy to engage the Baluya. And that was a winning ticket for Kebake and Wamalwa, Senior, the late. Mm-hmm. So come the peace dividend issue, that look, we want stability post the election. Remember, we had the ICC hanging over our heads, and we needed to be together to confront now the external. It's like when you have a fight in your family, and then an external guy comes. First you stop fighting, you deal with the external threat, existential threat. So, yes, we were in South Africa, for example. The ANC was doing 106 years anniversary with Zuma, Ramaphosa, and actually his deputy president, David Mamboza. And Raila was going to do this rally at Uhuru Park to swear himself in. And the entire security machinery was going to stop it. And I was there, and the president said, no, let him go ahead. Remove all the policemen from Uhuru Park. After all, we have a properly sworn-in government. So what?
Much as it's termed treason, the president allowed
No. He will swear himself in and go home to his wife. He was not going to march to the State House. So, and I mean, by the way, Raila was very clever. That swearing in was very cleverly worded to avoid the treason bit. Okay? So it was something like the people's president. All right? So you have the people's president, fine. But then you have a legally elected, recognized, sworn in by the Chief Justice, constitutionally in place, so that whatever you could do, unless you storm State House, that is now what would be treason.
All right. So, and you fast forward a bit into March 2018, there's a handshake. Were you privy to the workings of making sure the two met, and where was Ruto in all this?
I think that one was a heavily guarded engagement. Very, very few people were in the loop. Initially, yes, we had engaged people, some of us had engaged people like Uhuru, people like Joe Donde, people like Orengo, Joe Aguirre, and we were talking. And we were like, come on, you guys, why are we fighting? Why can't we come to some form of an arrangement where, look, Uhuru is going to do his last and final term. After that, we are quite happy to let the best man win, and we will not be a hindrance to your succession. And yes, but the actual crafting of this thing was a highly, highly guarded. In fact, I think even if the DP was involved, he could only have been involved at the very final stages, after the two of them had agreed about going about the handshake and taking the country back. Where did the rain start beating us? Because this was a very personal engagement between the two of them.
Was there a clause, quote unquote, to involve at least and consult the deputy president in all this?
No, I believe Raila has already said that the deputy president had approached him to engage him, all right? And I believe that formed the basis of him going to, or his emissaries, telling the president, hey, your friend here has some very funny, nasty ideas about how we can team up and probably bring you down. And then the president is like, what is that all about? Then in that case, what is your interest? Are your interest Kenya, or is it your personal, whatever you're being promised? And Raila, being the statesman he is, decided maybe this is the wrong route to follow. And let me engage His Excellency the President. He has the instruments. He's probably going home after his term. And this guy is probably going to be my competitor in 2022. And I think that was the genesis of this, where, and Ruto himself has admitted that he had tried to approach.
So you're saying the handshake was premised between Uhuru and Raila was premised on or based on the approach between DP Ruto and Raila?
It's on record.
It wasn't in and of itself
it's on
inspired
record.
by
it's,
the desire
the DP
to bring
himself.
the nation together.
It's the DP himself who has said.
Okay.
But Jacom has said, no. His motives were sinister. And what I agreed to discuss with the president was about Kenya.
Okay. Let's break on that. We've looked a bit into the history of getting us to where we are, because we're 47 days to the election. There are concerns about the voter register, or at least the electrical or electronic recognition of voters as they turn up to the polling station. There won't be a use of physical voter register. We'll have those concerns and others with the vice chairman of the Jubilee Party, David Murathe, after this short break. After this short break, we'll be also opening the lines for you to talk to us and put your questions directly to David Murathe.
Last year we didn't manage to finish the rally. We had some technical difficulties towards the end of the rally, which was quite frustrating for us. But this year I think we've made quite a bit of adjustments. There's a lot of development work that has taken place. We won the African Rally Championship Junior, so we've gotten an opportunity to compete in the World Rally Championship, the junior category. We started with the Rally of Sweden, went to Croatia, now did the Rally of Portugal, and I just came back from doing the Rally of Poland. I think finishing the Rally of Sweden had to be one of my most remarkable moments, because I don't think there's any African who has actually finished that rally before, let alone enter the rally. Hopefully with everything that I've learned, I can now piece it together, do a very good safari rally, because this is the one that I always look forward to. It's your home rally, it's your home fans, your family is here. So hopefully we can put a show for the fans, do a good job for them, and represent Kenya well in this WRC. I just want to say thank you to Safaricom and Kenya Airways for being with me throughout this journey. Thank you for supporting me also for the safari rally. Hopefully we can do a good job and have a fun and safe rally.
So, he's the one falling for you? Is it because you guys go for drinks and cook each other Spanish omelets?
Oh, so you know about the omelets. Is that what has your bile all up there today, Annie?
I'm not here to ask you for anything. And you don't deserve anything from me.
I'm the mother of your children.
Which is unfortunate.
Majamaa, tumeishi pamoja vizuri kama majirani. Watoto wetu wamecheza shuleni na hata nyumbani. Haijalishi wewe ni kabila gani. Tumekuwa Wakenya wangwana sana. Lakini inapofika wakati wa uchaguzi, chuki, vurugu, vita na siasa mbaya zinaingia hadi tunasahau hizo miaka zote tumeishi kwa amani. Mbona tofauti zetu za kisiasa zinafanya tusielewane? Uchaguzi utakuja na utapita, lakini Kenya itabaki kuwa nchi yetu. Kwa hivyo tusikubali fitina na kutumiwa vibaya.
To get Meme Kenya by Anna Ogwas, dial *811*929#. Skiza na Nation.
This ends today. Nini unaficha?
Baby ni viungo.
Toka kwa nyumba yangu. Asiwahi kurudi kwa compound tena.
Umefukuzwa, si ndio? Usininzeshe, hebu toka. Unajua nataka nikubomoe hapa, si ndio? Toka hapa. Mzee baby, lazima achukue simu yangu.
Hii gari nimeambiwa na mwenyewe nikuje nichukue.
Mwenyewe ni mimi. This is my car.
Pia huyo mwanamke amenisumbua sana.
Ni nani alimwambia?
Si ulituma mtu akuje achukue gari nikiwa naenda kufanya shughuli zangu?
If there is no sugar, there is no gari, there is no money.
Get peace of mind and protect the ones you love with the power of Dettol Bar Soap. It cleans and protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. So no matter what type of mum you are, trust Dettol.
Over 15 million members are transforming Africa. Equity. Karibu member.
Welcome back. We are talking to David Murathe, the Vice Chairman of the Jubilee Party, and we'll be giving you an opportunity to throw your questions to him. First things first, as we move forward, 47 days to the general election, and the IEBC has clarified that as you, the voter, turns up to the polling station, there will be the use of the KIMS kit, electronic identification of voters, and that is the only way they will be at least identifying the voters, and no use of a physical voter register. As a leader of Jubilee Party and now part of Azimio One Kenya Coalition Party, do you have concerns about that?
No, I think it's fantastic. You see, when you did the manual identification of the voter, people could conspire and agree to either strike your name that you have voted or not to strike it. Correct?
Yep.
You know, once you go and you are identified, they normally cancel out. This guy has voted. With the electronic, the KIMS kit, once you put in your thumbprint and your biometrics, you can't come again.
Right.
But on the other one, and that's where the vote stuffing and people coming with more than 1 or 5 ballots happens. Because if there's a conspiracy between the IEBC officials and the clerks and the agents, it is possible to manipulate that at the point of identification.
Right.
But once it is electronic, once your biometrics are taken, you can't vote again.
But there was a concern in the last election about the KIMS kits and not quite working effectively, much as the IEBC says that it has put all the measures in place. You're not concerned about losing any voters in terms of them showing up and not being able to identify themselves using the biometrics?
There was a law that had been presented in Parliament by the IEBC for an alternative way of identifying the voter. It was shut down largely by the noise out here that know that we have to do electronic, we have to do KIMS, we have to make them work. And yes, over the last 5 years, I believe the IEBC has been making sure that that system works,
right.
The identification, electronic identification methods. So we have to give it to them and challenge them. And I saw some of the other things they were trying to assure the voter is that even in those areas where you may not have the 3G, 4G networks, they have, you know, portable communication gadgets. I was talking to the Communications Authority because that's where they also come in. Because you don't expect the IEBC to go putting up towers and masts in all those
But
places.
you also don't expect the service providers to go around. There is commercial or at least monetary obligation to whoever charges them to do that. And that's actually the tiff between the Communications Authority and the IEBC, with one saying you can't quite make it an obligation for the players in the telecoms to put up the various masts or the infrastructure if there's no commitment. In that case, it's not on them. It's actually the responsibility of the IEBC to make sure that the infrastructure, to ensure we have a good election, is put in place.
I know. And that is why, for example, when you're dealing with the rural electrification, you find government highly subsidizing cable and transmission lines, going like what they were saying the SGR is the railway to nowhere. We are now on 75 towards 80% electricity connectivity. But you cannot just fight economically, all right? But you can see that in the future, by connecting those rural people to power, if you go to my village now, it's a beehive of activity. Young people with car washes, others doing welding, others, you know, there is such a heavy multiplier that before was not possible. The government is investing in that. So even for the telcos, it cannot just be that they can only be profit driven. And by the way, the technology is changing. You don't have to physically go putting that infrastructure.
That's right.
You can ride on Ketraco. You can ride on the transmission lines. But try and make it as near as possible. For example, almost every primary school catchment area now is connected to electricity. Why would it not be possible for these industry players to also make sure? Remember the laptop program. One of the reasons why it didn't happen is because there's no power closer to some of those very rural primary schools and secondary schools. In fact, the Kenya Power had to do off-grid systems in some of those places. So if you're going to have a digital economy and an enlightened generation, the first thing is to have connectivity in terms of telecommunication.
It is important. And that's why there was a concern with 1,111 polling stations not being able to, not having coverage, in fact. And yes, much as there was a promise, the test run for the relaying of, you know, the results from various polling stations that was done at the Bomas of Kenya didn't run well. It was actually very underwhelming. Do you have concerns of the Jubilee?
I don't want to speak for the IEBC.
No, it's out there. Even your officials of Jubilee Party were there for the test run.
Yes, they have given us an assurance, and that's the reason why they were doing that test run, so that they can find out the problem areas and address those areas before the election. And I'm sure, and I hope, that is what they are currently doing. They are working on those shortfalls, those shortcomings, and I'm sure by the time we test the real game, they should be, we have to give it, let's give them the benefit.
Benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
All right, but definitely with the moving closer to the election day, people would definitely have less doubt and more assurance that the election process will be carried out well. Into the game of numbers, and there are those talking about first round win or second round vote and even a challenge in court. There is the little factor of the Wajakoya aspect. You laugh at that, but in the latest poll, he's at 7%, the third most popular in terms of the polling, the poll that was done by Tifa at 7%. Are you worried about the Wajakoya factor?
No. Of course, Wajakoya was on the lips of everybody. He came in with some, how would I call it? There's something you have, it's like a Dida when they first did the election in 2013. You remember, and for some of us who were like, yes, this is a guy who tells you if you eat githeri, make sure you leave some space for water. You don't just fill up your system. And you know, he actually defeated Martha Karua and Peter Kenneth with some 60, 70,000 votes. But at the end of the day, it still boils down to the two.
And you're not concerned because the calculation, at least right now with the 22 million voters that are registered, it boils down to a 50+1 calculation or computation.
Right.
If Wajakoya were to take maybe 100,000, you're still not worried.
The last election, Uhuru beat Raila with 1.4 million.
Right.
In fact, the first one, when they did 50+1, initially they were saying they cross over the 50+1 with 8,000. When the numbers were computed, it was 80,000. Now, coming back to Wajakoya, who is he hurting? He's definitely not hurting our corner. If Wajakoya was to change any dynamic, and I saw him the other day, some social media photographs with the deputy president, it is the deputy president's corner that should be very worried and very concerned because they're appealing to that generation.
Right.
They're appealing to people who are taking, they're not interrogating some of these things seriously. I like what he's saying. And by the way...
About weed and everything.
About weed. It is true. I saw a documentary the other day about weed in South Africa. But it is not your normal weed. This is medicinal. They'll bring you agronomist. It's expensive. You have to do in some greenhouses.
Even snake farming to pay off debts. You like that?
My friend, you're not telling us to grow weed in Galana instead of doing food security. Instead of growing maize, instead of doing rice in Mwea, instead of doing, you know, come on.
All right.
I like in theory, and by the way, most of the countries around us have done it. Uganda has allowed it, Rwanda has allowed it, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia. It's making money.
So why not for Kenya? That's what you're saying.
No. We are even asking
right.
our candidate to consider in the next dispensation for medicinal purposes because the numbers Wajakoya is giving are making sense.
All right. Okay. Let's look at the Martha Karua factor.
Right.
And especially how it has played out in the Mount Kenya region. Did that play to your favor, and by how much in terms of the ground that you've managed to cover within the campaign period?
Yeah, I think the mother effect goes beyond Mount Kenya. I think, and again, the president said it on Madaraka Day, we are making strides in empowering women. We have, for the first time, our female Chief Justice. We have the Chief Registrar. We have the Controller of Budget. And if Kenyans agree, we'll have, for the first time, our first Deputy President who is a female. So it's not just about the numbers that we were looking at as a Jubilee.
But it is a numbers
about the
game,
country.
let's be honest.
Of course, it's a numbers game. When I look at the landscape in Mount Kenya, I may not have been a very big fan of Mother Karua, all right? But he's the only one who was able to energize the mountain, to excite the mountain, and not just the mountain. Kenyans are like, they need like a soluhu, you know, a solution. In the unlikely event the president is not there, who can you trust to carry on with the programs? Like Raila is now assuring us he will continue with the programs of Uhuru Kenyatta. The other guys are actually having their cake and eating it, taking credit for what is good for Uhuru and trashing everything else that is going wrong. People who have been in this government, I told you, for the last 30 years, both Musalia and William Ruto have been part of this government at the highest echelons of government for the last 30 years. Now they are busy trying to criticize what has happened, what Uhuru has done. In fact, they should not pretend to take any credit for what Uhuru has achieved, particularly in this last 5 years.
Okay, but I mean, again, in the argument of those who've been in government, it seems those on offer, at least not Wajakoya, they have been in government. But let's look at central Kenya. There was considerable growth and ground covered by the Kenya Kwanza team. Are you concerned about that, the numbers there in central?
My friend, when you're running alone, you think you're winning a race until the real race begins and people come and you have real competition. The DP has spent the last 4.5 years alone in Mount Kenya region. They said Raila can't climb the mountain. I want to challenge any pollster today, because like we said it, we are the ones who demonized Raila Amolo Odinga. We were competing with him at that time. We are the same people who are demystifying and undoing what we always did. In fact, we owe him an apology, because most of the things you said about Raila are not true, simply not true. These are political games. Now we're telling the people, hey, when we look at these two alternatives, we actually are telling you.
What's so different now? And you've said those were political games against Raila. What say someone looks at what you're doing right now with Ruto and say political games still at play?
No. People are looking at track records. Like I told you, this is somebody who has been in government since 1992 at the highest, even when he was an assistant minister in the office of the president.
All right,
just before we take powerful than a cabinet minister.
All right, just before we take the calls, because we put the lines there, and the director can tell me if there's someone waiting online to give a question to you.
Right.
How important is the central Kenya region for the Azimio team?
This election will be won in Mount Kenya because the demographics that are obtaining at the moment, everybody knows Nyanza is with Raila. The numbers for the Rift Valley, in Central Rift, in Kalenjin diaspora are with Ruto. If you look at Ukambani, they are now in Azimio. If you look at Meru, I'm sure you saw last week in Meru, it's Azimio. Northern Kenya, Azimio. If you look at Turkana, Masai, whatever, Azimio. In Western, they actually split, and Raila always actually even defeats Musalia in his own village. So whatever you do, whatever you say, even coast, you have Kwale maybe with Kenya Kwisha, and then you have the other counties.
So you have a
No, I didn't say it. The preacher woman is the one who said Kenya Kwisha. It's not.
But
me.
you've just said it as well.
No. But I'm just taking
let's take the focus
but I'm
on
saying
central.
now,
You're saying central.
So the fight will be in Mount Kenya.
Okay, because
who
you
carries
are on
Mount
record.
Kenya?
Yeah, but you are on record on March 15th. If we have that clip saying Raila is winning this election with or without the votes of the people of Mount Kenya. Let's listen into that and see what's changed before that.
Raila is winning this election. They better decide whether he's winning it with them on board or he's winning it without them on board.
Well,
because
it's
if
them to
Raila
decide.
wins it without them on board, they know they will be consigned to the dustbin. And probably this is the strategy of the deputy president, because his job is basically to isolate and alienate Mount Kenya from the rest of the country.
You stand by those words?
Yes.
But you just said that the fight is in Central.
I'm saying the fight is in Central because the battle lines are drawn. So it's the same message, actually.
But whether or not they vote, you say Raila would win. So why
I am still saying,
focused on?
and I'm saying to the people of Mount Kenya, Raila is winning this thing with or without you.
All right.
However, now we have an opportunity to be part of Raila winning. For example, even if we give Raila 10% of Mount Kenya, he'll still win it because Raila has never had the votes of Mount Kenya. This time you can be sure he's going to get votes from Mount Kenya. But when he looks back, he says, oh, Mount Kenya just gave me 10%. Let me assure you, my friend, Mount Kenya is going to give Raila more votes than he will get in his own Nyanza, native Nyanza backyard.
All right. Lagat is calling in and would like to put a question to you. You'll be able to hear it if my director would just tell me where Lagat is calling in from. Good morning, Lagat. You calling in, actually, I'm told, from Naivasha. Thank you for calling in and for watching. What's your question to Bwana Murathe?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Mark Masai.
Karibu.
And pass my regards to Jubilee Vice Chair, David Murathe. Personally, I just want to congratulate Mr. Murathe because whatever he has been saying is the truth. And I have been following his conversation since 2017, and what he has been saying is very right. Yes. So what I'm saying is this.
Right.
If you look at William Samoei Ruto, if you compare him with Raila Odinga,
right,
you can see Raila Amolo Odinga is a person who has got an interest to take this country to the next level. And the issue of politics, you know, sometimes people may say that, oh, these people, 2013, 2017, they were saying Raila is a bad person, Raila is a Muganga, Raila is a Mchawi, but those were just politics.
All right.
But now, Uhuru Kenyatta does not have anything to lose at the moment. And he wants to leave this country to a leader who is going to take our nation to the next level.
All right, I'll give a chance.
I want Kenyans to continue listening to.
All right, I'd like to give a chance to Murathe to respond to that. It's basically a congratulatory message.
Oh, yeah, and by the way, and I agree with Lagat, it's not like Uhuru has said Ruto should never become president of this country. He's just saying for the transition purposes, for the time being, the person who can steer this country in the same trajectory that he believes will leave this country united, this country prosperous, this country stable.
Okay.
And remember, Raila has been on this thing for a long time, and he has really suffered for the democratization of this country. Raila brings integrity. I cannot say so much about the other side when it comes to issues of integrity. You know, most of them have got cases, and that's why we always talk about them as Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. And you wonder, you know, now Kenyans, it's up to them. The choices are there, and we don't mind the outcome. We know where we want to see this country in the next 10, 15, 20 years.
In all fairness, we'd have them here to defend themselves against those accusations of Alibaba and 40 Thieves.
Masai, I have never accused anyone.
Yeah, but you've just said on the other side. It's very, you know, out there, like in the sense you're not saying any names, but you're directing it one way. Murathe from Rongai would like to talk to you, Bwana Murathe. And Murathe, karibu, good morning. What's your question to Bwana Murathe?
Murathe, okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Karibu.
I respect Murathe so much. I have never met him, but I would like him to tell us the plans of peace. Now that we are engaging our citizens in politics,
yes,
and thereafter, I want him to elaborate to us the modalities of peace, because peace is very crucial.
Okay.
I'm one of those guys who have worked in the military for the last 30 years.
Yes.
I'm one of those officers who have secured Kismayu. In 1982, we suppressed the mutiny. I know very well that we need peace. We need peace in this country. We don't want to come into a repeat of 2002 and 2000 and I think the other elections.
Yes.
So Murathe, I have something for you. I would like you to give me a personal someone who I can come and talk to. I have something very, very crucial in terms of peace for this country. And I like you so much, and we want peace in this country. Nothing else, just peace. Peace is very crucial. Murathe, I've been looking for you. I came to the Jubilee headquarters. I could not get you. I know you're very busy. I want you to promise me to come there and explain something about peace. I'm very interested about peace because I've seen it.
Thank you very much, Murathe. Please respond to that.
Okay, then they need to understand how the party works.
Yeah.
We have a secretariat that operates from the Jubilee headquarters. We go there for meetings,
right.
Either a National Management Committee meeting or a NEC meeting, or as and when we need to do housekeeping. But the Secretary General, the Executive Director, the directors, because we have a directorate, are full-time in Jubilee headquarters. And by the way, he also needs to know I'm also the Vice Chair of Azimio, NEC. So we are also dealing with NEC. In fact, when you talked about coalitions, I thought we were going to deal with how that is panning out. But I want to assure him, and I want to assure Kenyans, this is going to be the most peaceful election ever. Number one, because the people who have tiffs with each other for the first time are on the same side. All right? First, we go together with the Kalenjin nation. So if you go to the Rift Valley, there's no tension. There's no... Actually, the independents, the Buzekis of this world, everybody is at work. Some of the most loyal DP supporters, my friend Caleb Kostani, I was with him here the other day, lost it. And you can see there is a lot of freedom and democracy, even in Kalenjin. They are not being herded into one corner. When you look at the tiff between the Kikuyu and the Luo nation, for that matter, now they appear to be on the same side. So if you ask me, this is going to be the most peaceful election ever in terms of a transitional election. Number two, because this election will be so decisive. Remember what I said about Kalonzo. If he had decided to go with Raila in 2007 or with Kibaki in 2007, the result would have been so pronounced there would have never been post-election violence. Now, this time he has agreed to take sides, and he has taken the side of Raila. Sasa hana hiyo kupitia katikati. He has taken sides with Azimio, so Ukambani is locked, and when you lock Ukambani, you lock it all the way to Changamwe in Mombasa. Right. Kina Joho take over. Kilifi, Lamu is traditionally our territory. So, because this result will be so decisive, it will be like the 2010 Constitution. You remember? When the Deputy President then was campaigning for the North side. And that's why sometimes we wonder what is going on, because now he's the real champion of this Constitution. It was a 70-30. Him and the churches and everybody else who listened to him managed 30%. Kibaki, Raila, Uhuru, and all the rest of us who vouched for this 2010 Constitution was 70. I had it said yesterday, and the result will just be about the same this time around.
Yeah, you've spoken about peace.
To be so decisive, there will be no contest.
You've spoken about peace and the assurance of the same, because this is so decisive. But there has been the argument of this perception that it's already won, it's decisive, is not the best, because if, for instance, something were to happen to the contrary, the expectation that has been built would explode in people's faces, because then there will be the notion that there was rigging. If the decisiveness is not so decisive at the moment of reckoning, when the fat lady sings, IEBC announces the results?
We are quite happy to acknowledge and accept whatever the outcome of Kenyans. You see, this is a decision of Kenyans, and nobody knows how they will turn out. But according to our numbers, and you know, we do scenarios, and this country, like it or don't like it, is made up of communities who, for example, in terms of the 2017 election, people who are saying they were happy to secede from Kenya.
Right.
And were saying, the way this game is going, there is no way we will ever win. This will be a game where Akalenjin finishes, Akikuyu takes over. Akikuyu finishes, Akalenjin takes over. And that is how you can see even that matrix, that even their running mate has to come from Mount Kenya. So if for whatever reason they win, the guy primed to be the next in line would be coming from Mount Kenya. Now, that sense of exclusion is what Azimio is all about. Azimio does not want other communities in this country feeling excluded, feeling that they have no chance, and they are saying even an El Moro or even a guy from Taveta can become president in the future. And that sense of inclusion, people feeling included, is what will make it impossible for any other outcome to happen in this country. Because Kenyans love this country. And Kenyans are not about government. They just want to be left alone to do their business. But they want an enabling environment. And what Jacom and his team are promising is they are enablers. All right? These are the guys that are coming with prescriptions, as opposed to somebody who is telling you, Babacare will happen like this. And look, today, actually,
well,
Uhuru is doing those things.
Be giving
Uhuru is doing those
enablers
things
from their perspective.
He is doing them. There is a free maternity now. No other government has ever done that. Women are walking into those places. Look at Nairobi. 24 facilities, which are 24 hours, which has decongested Kenyatta, and actually markets in the first 5 years.
And his deputy president can't take any credit of
He
that
cannot.
being part of the
They
government.
did 5 markets, 5 in the first term. They have done 58 in the second term of the handshake. So you can see, in terms of work and output, where the results have been more pronounced.
Speaking of results, are you concerned that there might be a case built against or whatever the outcome will be in the election? Because there has been a lot of hue and cry about government machinery being involved. First of all, will we be seeing the president on the campaign trail for Azimio?
The president has every right to campaign for his candidate.
What resource would he be using?
But the president, you don't expect him on top of a caravan or a truck routing. But like I said before, if he's opening something in Loitoktok and the crowds are out there, he has to provide leadership. He has to provide guidance. In fact, in Mount Kenya, the Sagana 3 was about telling Mount Kenya why he preferred Raila Amolo Odinga to William Ruto. He knows these two people. He knows the strengths and weaknesses of Raila Amolo Odinga. He knows the strengths and weaknesses of William Samoei Ruto. And he's telling Mount Kenya, if you were to pick, I know these two people. I'm telling you, I would go with this one and not this one, at least for now, for the following reasons. And he's telling them the reasons why that is his choice. However, he has the responsibility to oversee a free, fair, and transparent election. And that is why you are finding, even in this campaign period, none of the civil servants, none of the chiefs or the national administration is out there campaigning for whatever side.
What about the cabinet secretaries that have been named in
They are allowed
to Section
by
15
in the
of
Constitution.
election offences?
They are allowed in the Constitution. A cabinet secretary...
They're not in contravention of Section 15 of the
No,
Election Offences
it actually
Act
says
2016.
except cabinet secretaries. If you read it
Cabinet
properly,
secretaries, in your wording...
they are supposed to propagate the agenda of the manifesto of the government which has appointed them.
Using the state resource in the
They
campaign.
are not using state resources. When a cabinet secretary goes to inspect a road, the party and that government which was formed promised the road. It is his job to go and see hii barabara imefika wapi.
But isn't that road then being used in the campaign? It is a service that was meant to be given to Kenyans regardless what side they
And that is
support.
precisely the problem, Masai. Because people are seeing this road, if it's not finished, and we give it to the leadership of the other side, that road will stall.
Then that road is being used politically then.
This road, if we give it to this guy, no, we are talking about the current status of that road, which the minister has gone to inspect.
Or which was meant to be
and
done.
He's telling them, by the way, we have 47 days left. If you want this road to be finished, please vote for Raila Amolo Odinga, because he has promised to continue. And we know if the other side takes power, this road will not be finished. And there is so many such projects, by the way, not just in Mount Kenya, in the whole of Kenya, where people are like, who can you trust to finish those projects? You know, one is the biggest problems you have with the governors, or even members of parliament with the CDF, is when an outgoing MP has an unfinished project, the guy who comes neglects those projects and starts his own. You know why? Because there's largesse, there's money to be taken on new projects. The other ones become white elephant, and they become dead as dodos. So in terms of the national rollout, we do not want somebody who will not at least come and finish what is ongoing before they start.
So on that point, in your view, you see no case, you're not concerned because you feel the CSs and PSs are allowed.
It's the law. They are allowed
to campaign.
Read the Constitution.
All right. I'll read also the Section 15 of the Election Offences Act. But this is something Bilson Kiprugut says. Good morning. Ask Murathe, what if Raila loses elections again? What will happen to our peace? I'm asking this because you've always said Raila must win for us to have peace. That's Bilson Kiprugut, what he says.
I don't know that it is a condition for peace for Raila to win.
Yeah.
Raila has felt disenfranchised over time, all right? And we were on the other side, and in some instances, like the 2017, we actually believe it was clear. They even know the numbers, 54 to 44. They know them. You know, everybody has their tallying centers and everything. And it is not a must for Raila to win, for this country to have peace. On the contrary, it is people who are threatening others that you have to vote in a certain way for peace to obtain in places like the Rift Valley. And unfortunately for them, like I was there recently, our people are like, no, we will vote the way we want to vote.
All right.
I can guarantee, because I'm in Azimio, now I can talk on behalf of Azimio. If we should lose this election, we will not go shouting that it was rigged. We will not even, unless, of course, there are glaring issues of manipulation by the IEBC. But our infrastructure is such that at every stage, remember this election happens at the polling station.
Right.
So it is your capacity to have the proper agents who monitor everything, and remember they also transmit to your own tallying center, let alone the IEBC one. And so if what we are getting from our agents does not tally with what the IEBC is pronouncing, now that is an issue.
Okay.
But if what they are announcing tallies with what our tallying center from our agents confirms, Raila will be gracious to concede defeat. Remember, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is the only person who has gone on record as conceding defeat.
Okay.
When he lost in 2002
All right.
to the NAC formation of Raila Odinga and Mwai Kibaki. You remember?
All right.
Uhuru is now on this same side where that is our culture of conceding defeat.
Okay. And let's say it goes the other way. Azimio wins. You're speaking for Azimio right now. As
they have
Vice
no
Chairman
capacity
of
to
Jubilee.
cause any chaos.
I'm asking on your capacity, not capacity, but in your own place as David Murathe. Are you looking forward to any responsibility within an Azimio government if they are to win?
Oh, me?
Yes.
No, of course not. By the way, if I wanted to be in government, I would have been in government in 2013.
Right.
I was the director of the Uhuru Kenyatta Center. It's an advisory backroom center. I would have been in that government. This one now, we were part of the team that was even proposing the names of the people we would consider for running mate. Look, my friend, we are the president's men. Mm-hmm. President's men go home with the president. Obama went home with his people, George Bush, Bill Clinton, even Trump.
When you say we are the president's men, is that the deep state? The
No.
President
The
William
people
Ruto?
around the president
Right.
who have been working with the president, who have taken the flak, you take the credit and you take the flak for the failures, when it is his time to go. And this president I can't wait. All right?
Is that what she's telling you?
Oh, we know, not what he's telling us, but he can't wait to finish.
Yeah.
And that's why he's in a hurry to finish some of his pledges and promises and, programs. But this is a president who will walk into the sunset like a cowboy.
And you're happy
Have
to
you
go
been
join
watching
it?
cowboy movies?
Yeah,
Do you
I
see
do.
how the cowboy walks into the sunset on top of that horse?
And you're happy to go and enjoy the sunset days with him?
My friend,
enjoying a cold one perhaps.
President's men go home with the president.
All right. Bwana David Murathe, you're headed to Samburu. Thank you for giving us time.
Yes, we did a beautiful Isiolo.
Yes.
We're doing Samburu today, and we'll do Wamba, and we'll also do Mrasabit. So, yes.
Busy schedule for you. Thank you for quoting us the
we are
time.
good, and I love the show.
All right.
Well done.
And we'll have you back.
And please, NTV, continue with your anti-corruption agenda, because people are not bringing that corruption topic on the campaign.
All right.
Nation Group, you are known for dealing with that.
All right.
Please continue.
Although you have been, on record saying Nation has not been fair, naming you alongside Kemsa.
I was quite happy to sue you. Because I had.
Hey, he's threatening now. Let's winding up.
No, it's not a threat.
And hand it over now to Winnie. We're talking real estate today.
And of course, I just want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Although I'm a bit scared.
All good.
What
we're
you're going
safe
to say? No, but it's okay. It's all good.
Yes.